Washington correspondent Peter Cook is on Capitol Hill with Republican Senator Johnny Isakson, who is organizing tonight's White House dinner with the president and Senate Republicans. And Peter, take it away.
Betty, thanks very much. I am joined by Senator Isakson, member of the Finance Committee, and again, the person who's going to be dining with the president this evening. First of all, if I could, I just want to get your take on what's happened with these Fed minutes, this early release. I know you're not on the Banking Committee, but any thoughts about the Fed being forced to release these minutes early, the inadvertent release, and what the impact might be here in Washington, not just on Wall Street?
Well, inadvertent releases always are going to trigger reactions and counteractions that take place in the marketplace, so the Fed needs to be careful about letting those things get out on a blast email. We had the same thing happen on a health insurance issue in one of the committees here in the Senate last week. But I think QE3, if it is phased out, is a reality that's got to come. I mean, we've been buying our debt now for almost 2 years, artificially keeping rates low. Eventually, we're going to have to go back to some sense of normalcy. So I think it's probably inevitable.
All right, let's talk about the budget. You're going to be talking with the president about that and much more. But what's your first reaction to a budget that is not only angering some, or at least some Republicans don't like the tax increases in here, but there's some Democrats who don't like what's in here as well. The president is suggesting, the White House is suggesting this is a compromise plan that Republicans should take seriously.
Well, if you want to fight, there's something in the budget to fight for, regardless of your political philosophy. The important thing is the president has put down a marker in terms of change CPI, which in terms of Social Security and Medicare over the longitudinal time period lowers the cost and saves the benefit for seniors and people that have paid for it. That's a starter. We're talking about corporate tax reform in the Finance Committee, which is also going to be a part of the puzzle we've got to solve in America to re-energize America's investment, to keep investment staying in this country, go to a territorial tax system rather than taxing profits overseas twice, once there and once when they come back. So there are a lot of things we can do.
You're encouraged by what you see in this budget? Is this something that could lead to that elusive grand bargain?
Well, my answer to that is I sold houses for 33 years as a real estate broker. I never made a deal without everybody sitting down at the table, working out compromises and finding common ground. If we're sitting down at the table talking, that's a good first start.
Tonight you're going to be at dinner with this president. There are going to be 12 Republican senators there. What do you hope comes out of that conversation? And is it going to be just about the budget?
It's an open agenda, but I think it will be a lot about finances, about the debt, about the deficit, about spending, about tax reform on the corporate side. And I hope it's the predicate for another meeting. This is a long process. Tonight's not going to be an event. Hopefully it's a step along the way towards an event that takes place.
Do you think a grand bargain is still possible? Do you think there's a budget compromise out there that both Republicans and Democrats here in Washington support? Because there are a lot of people already discounting the chances of that.
Well, and that's unfortunate, because if you discount the chance to have a grand bargain, you discount the chance to solve a major problem for the country. The grand bargain, though, is going to be based on the American people winning, which means it can't be winner take all for the president. We're going to have to sit down and negotiate and find a common ground.
Can't be winner take all for the president, but are Republicans at the same time going to be willing to at least have a conversation about revenues going forward?
We're going to the meeting tonight.
And that's on the table?
We're going to have a conversation about whatever anybody brings up, so you sit down and talk.
Let's talk about one other issue that's out there right now, and that is this debate over gun legislation here in Washington. We hear talk about a bipartisan compromise on the issue of background checks right now. Where's Johnny Isakson going to be on this legislation now that it includes potentially some compromise here on universal background checks?
Well, I learned a long time ago you read the legislation before you start touting what you're going to do, and I look forward to reading it when it comes out at 11 o'clock. But I'm glad they moved away from banning weapons sales. I've never been for a ban or a restriction on Second Amendment rights for law-abiding Americans. If it just deals with, background checks, I'll take a look at it and see what it says. But the bill ink's not dry yet, so I'm not making any commitment until I see what it says.
Do you think at the end of the day there's going to be some sort of gun legislation that passes this Congress, whether or not it has your vote or not?
There will be a debate as to how the vote comes out. I'm not going to predict that because I haven't read the legislation yet.
All right, let me ask you about one other issue, again, affecting the business community. That's immigration. What are your own thoughts about that and the likelihood that's going to come up in the conversation tonight with the president?
I doubt if it comes up tonight, because I think there's going to be a huge focus on spending, on revenues, on debt and deficit, on Social Security, Medicare. You just can't talk about everything in one night, and you got to get down to details. So I think it'll be a pretty detailed conversation on the financial issues that face the country. I doubt if it's going to be about immigration.
All right, Senator Johnny Isakson, the Republican from Georgia, who was, again, Betty, leading that dinner tonight with President Obama over at the White House. We don't even know what's on the menu, but hopefully we'll get a few details afterwards.
Okay, we'll be tuning in for that. Peter, thank you very much. Our chief Washington correspondent, Peter Cook, there with the Georgia Senator Johnny Isakson. And stay with Bloomberg for reaction from the